Hello, guys. My name is Alvaro Silvestre. I am part of the ethics course with the profession I am Werkheiser, and today I'm going to talk about the Deepwater Horizon tragedy. This was presented, of course, a little bit late. There was an issue with my classmates between the organization of the project, so I decided to present by myself. And we start with the introduction. We can say that this presentation is going to be or it's going to be based or we're going to take lessons on responsibility, corporate ethics, and human cost from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And the motivations for me, Alvaro Silvestre, to start with this presentation or to talk to you guys about this tragedy is basically because on April 11, 2025, I attended a performance of a spill at the Moody Center for the Arts, located on the Rice University campus in Houston, Texas. I attended this play because I was very interested about the topic. How can they mix engineering ethics and also climate change and also theater all in one? And I was fascinated with the results, and that's why it led me to talk to you guys about this as my final project for ethics. And we start with the Deepwater Horizon disaster. We have to know what it is, and we start with April 20 in 2010. The BP oil rig explodes in the Gulf of Mexico. 11 workers were killed, whether they fall into the water. They were hit. Some of them also because they breathed the gases at the moment, and there was massive environmental damage. You can see the image, the picture, the illustration on the left. It's about the Deepwater Horizon, the oil where it went. We can see right there that it was on the beaches and the recreational uses that affected tourism and also different business like fishing. There was on marsh and other nearshore habitat. There was on the beach habitat as well. You know, some birds and sea turtles and fish and water column species, marine mammals, and also on the deep sea communities. And we can see from the image on the right that the U.S. coastal waters affected by the Gulf of Oil spill. You can see that it affected Louisiana, New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama zones in the United States. The graph explains very well by itself, so you can take a look at that graph right there. And we move with the engineering ethics. And BP contractors ignore safety warnings to save time and money, flawed well design and testing procedures, and violated basic principles of engineering ethics, prioritizing public safety, honesty, and accountability. Basically, they had like a whole agenda that they had to fill in with a deadline, for example, and they rushed everything, and that led to this catastrophe. And now, with the engineering ethics, we continue on corporate responsibility failure, which basically was evidence showed BP prioritized profit over risk management. There was lack of redundancy in emergency equipment, and also internal documents revealed known issues were downplayed. And the environmental impact of this catastrophe was the oil contaminating over 1,300 miles of coastline. There was killed marine life, dolphins, turtles, birds, and fish, as I mentioned earlier. And there was long term damage to coral reefs, fisheries, and wetlands. There's also the human and economic impact, and we can see, as I mentioned earlier as well, that the 11 workers lost their lives at this terrible catastrophe. There was thousands of Gulf Coast residents who lost income from fishing, as I mentioned earlier as well. There was tourism and small businesses, and also there were health problems reported from exposure to oil and cleanup chemicals. And the government and regulatory response was the criticism of the U.S. government and the Minerals Management Service (MMS) for weak oversight. Also, this catastrophe led to reforms like the creation of the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, and also the safety standards for offshore drilling were basically upgraded. And also, we can say finally for the climate change connection that reliance on fossil fuels led lead leads to greater environmental risk. I'm sorry, and oil spills exacerbate ecosystem fragility under climate stress. And this strategy is a reminder of the urgent need for renewable energy transition. Now we go to the ethical lessons from this catastrophe. The ethics must be guide engineering must be guiding engineering and businesses decisions. Also, there's this transparency and safety that cannot be compromised. Never ever compromise transparency and safety. Never over anything. There's always have to be transparency and safety. And the prevention requires proactive leadership, not just compliance. Now we go to the reflection of this catastrophe. It's the systematic ethical failure. There's also that this catastrophe was, of course, preventable. And the takeaways for us as engineers, there's always the need to protect people, the planet, and the profession. That's why we have a engineering code of ethics. That's why it is for. And as a conclusion of this tragedy, I will say that the Deepwater Horizon disaster reminds that ethical negligence equals or leads to consequences, irreversible consequences, and that as engineers, we must lead with responsibility, transparency, and commitment to sustainable solutions. You can see also the references right there if someone want to check out or do research by themselves about this catastrophe. It was really amazing for me to learn about it. And thank you for your attention. I leave you guys a picture of the spill theater play that I attended again on the Rice Conference, on a Rice Climate Conference in the Moody Center for the Arts. And you can see right there some of the actors. There, one of them even has this oil rig costume or uniform. There's also the VP right there, manager. There's also a wife who lost his husband. Of course, she's an actress. She's not the actual wife, but you can see very interesting characters right there at the picture. And this is all for my part. Thank you so much for your attention and for watching this video this late, which is almost close to the deadline of the semester. So thank you so much. Thank you so much again. I am Work Heiser, an amazing instructor and amazing professor. So thank you.